Hi everyone, you're watching the virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Lodha. So today's topic for discussion would be on breaking into the US legal market for internationally trained lawyers. Definitely a tough nut to crack. And joining us today on the virtual Amicus is someone who has not only cemented her position, but also successfully managed and set benchmarks into the US legal market and set high benchmarks for internationally trained lawyers. So today we are joined by Mrs. Vartika Jain, who is a capital markets and mergers and acquisitions attorney based in the US. And just to give you all a brief introduction about her Amicus for today's session, she's an attorney licensed to practice in California and focuses on corporate and securities transactions in the technology and life sciences sectors. Her clients include a variety of public companies, startups, and pre-IPO companies, investment banks. She regularly represents companies across all aspects of their life cycle, including corporate governance, SEC reporting and compliance, capital markets offerings and mergers and acquisitions. And talking about her professional experience at present, she's working as a senior associate, corporate associate with Wilson Sonsini Goodrich in California. Prior to that, she worked at Sullivan and Cromwell in California. And prior to that, she was at HSB Partners in Chennai. As far as education is concerned, she studied law, which was BLLB honors from the very prestigious Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National University in Lucknow, where she participated in the Philip C. Jessup International Law Moot Court Competition, represented India in the international rounds at Washington, D.C. And also her team stood as a runners-up and also won the second best memorial award. She also participated in the very prestigious Stetson International Environment Moot Court Competition. She's also participated in the Manfred Lachs Space Moot Court competition, where she represented India at the Asia Pacific rounds. She's also pursued her LLM with business law certificate from the very prestigious University of California, Berkeley School of Law back in 2016. So thank you so much, Vartika, for taking out time for doing this session on us for us. Anything that you wish to say before we start with our Q&A segment? Anything about the channel?
Thank you for having me, Jay. I see that you've had some really accomplished and interesting guests on your channel so far. So I'm excited to be here, and congrats on getting started with your channel. I'm sure it's a really helpful resource for a lot of law students throughout the country.
Well, thank you so much for all the kind words. Can't wait to start this Q&A segment. If you're ready, we can start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So question number one. So Vartika, you've already achieved a lot, when you were pursuing your law from the very prestigious Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law School, subsequently did your master's. So what prompted you to move across the globe and practice law in the United States? Over to you.
Yeah, so I'm a first generation lawyer. I come from a family of jewelers, not lawyers. So, I knew this really early on, that regardless of geography, I would have to make my mark in law without having access to the professional resources and connections that someone with a family background in law may have. And my first impression of the United States was that this country was largely a meritocracy. And that is what drew me to the US in the first place. I first came here for a moot court competition in 2012 in Florida, and then to Washington, D.C. in 2013. And I realized that this is a land of immigrants, a land of opportunity. And I thought I could make this my land of action and establish my legal career here as a first generation immigrant and lawyer.
Very well. Now going ahead with our next question, if it in a nutshell, you could define what your role is as a US corporate attorney.
Yeah, so I practice corporate and securities law at a firm called Wilson Sonsini, which is known for representing startups and early stage private companies as well as public companies on their IPOs and SEC reporting. And so I also do M&A transactions. So that's in a nutshell, my role as a corporate attorney here in the US.
Fantastic. Now, going ahead with our next question. So, how do you land in this field? Was it by design? Was it by accident? Did you plan before you moved? And what all courses in the process did you pursue? If you can mention and talk about the universities that you went to and what courses did you study or pursue there?
Well, so mostly by design, but with a twist. My first love was chartered accountancy. But yeah, I ended up in law school thanks to my brother, who felt that my personality was too dynamic for a career as a chartered accountant. And he pushed me into law. And once I found my footing in law school, I chose to practice transactional law because of its global nature and the flexibility it offers to practice across multiple countries and jurisdictions. So while I found the idea of practicing in courts really fascinating during law school, I quickly realized that litigation is inherently territorial. And so that's why I decided to become a transactional lawyer. As for the academic foundation, I got a solid start at RML, and I now look back on those days as the fondest days of my life. We were a very young institution at the time, and there was a lot to be done. Just there were so many firsts that I could be a part of. So in many ways, it was like getting a startup off the ground, that brought with it tremendous opportunity to build a name for us. As the third batch of RML, we really took it upon ourselves to shine in every field, be it academics or extracurriculars like moot courts, international conferences, debates, negotiations, and just basically trying to give ourselves the best college experience out there. I remember at every competition that we would go to, we were thought of as the underdogs that were punching above our weight, and it just felt really nice to get all that respect and recognition from our peers and judges alike. And then once I decided to move to the US, I knew I had to learn as much as I could about the legal system here, but at the same time be efficient with my time and money. And that's how I decided to do the LLM program at UC Berkeley. Now, Berkeley has a vibe that makes everything better each day. Perfect weather, liberal views, diverse people, and a world-class education. So there I sought out classes that were being taught by actual practitioners as opposed to purely academic professors. I maxed out my schedule and took all the business law related courses that the university had to offer. Business associations, securities regulation, M&A, venture finance, capital markets, leveraged buyouts, antitrust law, anything that you could think of that is related to the field of corporate and business laws. I also did an arbitration moot court in Washington, D.C. So, it was a jam-packed year, but overall a very wonderful and enriching experience.
Now that you mentioned about the master's program that you studied, that you pursued from Berkeley, does it offer any summer programs? Just to add to that, for any person or any applicant or any law student who wishes to pursue a master's program there, would you recommend any summer program or any summer schooling, just to get a taste of what Berkeley has to offer?
I'm sure they offer some 2-month summer
Okay.
programs, but
Mhm.
I don't know how useful those would be, because moving to a country, or rather moving continents, is not an easy task. And for someone who has decided to get a US education, I would recommend that they do their research and find a way to either go for the LLM, or if they have the resources and the time, they could even pursue a full-fledged JD. But Berkeley does offer 2 tracks of their LLM course. One is the traditional track that I went for, and the other one is a professional track, which is taught over 2 summers, because it's tailor to more of, if you're an executive and you're doing this as part-time, you just want to make use of your court vacation or something like that, then they do have that option. But for a full-fledged US education experience, I would recommend the traditional track LLM, which is a year-long course.
So to all the viewers who are watching, resources, time, and passion. I think that is what it takes to pursue, a master's program from such a prestigious university. And focus, obviously, you need to first understand and identify the kind of course that you want to specialize in, and subsequently take a call. This was as far as Berkeley is concerned. Now, going ahead with that next question, now that we've discussed how you landed in this field, and the whole definition and your role as a corporate attorney, if you could talk about the nature of your job, the position that you're at, the kind of work that is assigned to you, the kind of work that you're supposed to do, and also if you could share any such landmark deal or project or transaction that you've been a part of.
Yeah, happy to. So, as a senior associate at a large and global law firm, I have a diverse and dynamic set of responsibilities. Having worked at two of the most highly regarded law firms now, one based out of New York, which is Sullivan and Cromwell, and the other one in the heart of Silicon Valley here, Wilson Sonsini. I've had the opportunity to work on a large number of headline grabbing deals where high profile companies have come together. So on a day-to-day basis, I manage several deal teams and projects at a time, from start to finish, interacting with clients, drafting and negotiating deal documents, be it in an IPO drafting session or in an M&A or venture financing context, and just generally driving and overseeing all the various work streams that go into closing these billion-dollar deals. And then my role also includes hiring and training junior associates, which I very much enjoy doing. So you asked about a landmark transaction. So I think the one deal that is closest to my heart is when I worked on the Levi's IPO back in early 2019. It's my favorite because this was the first deal where I got to lead my team to the finish line, and it was for a household name that we all grew up wearing. I remember growing up in India, being obsessed with branded clothing as a teenager, and this brand was a big part of my childhood and early adulthood. So this deal was for a very well-known company that I could just talk to my parents about, and they would actually know something about this company, and that made it special. But also this deal showed me, as well as my bosses, that I was ready to level up from being just a junior associate and take the role of an advising and managing attorney going forward on all my teams. And so in many ways, it was that one deal that was the turning point in my professional life.
Very well. Now, going ahead with our next question. How hard, is it for internationally trained lawyers to break into the U.S. legal market, as the topic suggests? Was it really very hard for you to break that glass ceiling, or if you look at your profile, I think you're one of the most accomplished lawyers to have made it from India to the U.S., because you participated in all top three very prestigious moot court competitions. You've pursued law from a national law school. You've pursued masters from a top college in the world. Was it really very hard for you?
Well, it's a tough nut to crack. So it definitely can be an uphill battle due to a few reasons. One, there's less demand and adequate supply of the JD candidates, which is the primary feeder of lawyers to these law firms out here. Second, which I think is the biggest challenge so far, there's this challenge of assimilation, which nobody really likes to talk about. But I feel that there's this very real pressure on foreign trained lawyers to sort of Americanize almost overnight in the way they think, talk, eat, watch sports, politics, pop culture, basically any topic of public and workplace conversation. And then on the other end as well, I mean, it's hard for Americans too to make an immigrant feel at home, because that requires for them to step out of their comfort zone, especially in a profession like law, which has historically been so traditional and slow to change. My friends who work in tech here don't necessarily face that challenge. But I remember I would get this question a lot in social settings that, you're a brown woman, but you're not an engineer. And because, I mean, that's what they were used to seeing. So it was just something, something that was different and uncharted, I would say. So often legal employers just like to stick to their tried and tested ways of hiring. And so, they are not really familiar with the LLM program, because they don't need to familiarize themselves with that. And then that is why they also don't want to open up these opportunities to LLM candidates. There's a lack of precedent. Some firms have never really hired an LLM in their history. So for anyone who is interested in getting a job here after their LLM, my advice would be to start early with that process. A lot of my friends in the LLM program here at Berkeley realized, only toward the end of the program that they were actually interested in finding a job here, and then they started pursuing that path. But for some, it was already too late, or they had to find other jobs as their starter jobs, and then they would eventually crack their way into the legal profession. So, for those students who are considering moving to the US and starting their career here, I always emphasize two key things that foreign trained lawyers should focus on while they're studying here. First is keeping your grades up, and then second is networking. So, getting good grades is not the be all and end all of things, I would say, but it's still a good way to distinguish yourself in a pile of resumes. The other thing is, obviously networking. I got my first job here at Sullivan and Cromwell while I was still in the middle of my LLM, because I happened to meet an associate who was working at the firm at that time, at a conference which was related to doing some sort of e-commerce business in India. It was the most unusual place to find an associate who's working at a firm like that, but it happened. And then we just ended up having a brief chat there and staying in touch. And then they were kind enough to refer me to the recruiting folks, and I went from there. I also had another opportunity to work at a private equity firm in San Francisco, and that came from one of my Berkeley professors, who was also the general counsel at that private equity firm in the city. So, networking for me is a very crucial tool for getting your foot in the door as a foreign trained attorney in a new market like the US.
Wow. So I think more or less LLMs are like these packages, they offer those packages wherein you interact with a lot of professors, you meet, you make a lot of friends, and then they contribute and become this network, solid network that ultimately helps you out, in getting plays and, getting jobs here and there. So it is probably that network that you build that really helps you, when you need that network the most. So now,
Yeah, more than anything else, I would say that that's true.
Even if the course would not help, it's the network that you build would eventually help you, because obviously you will be in touch with all your batchmates, all your colleagues, all your friends that you've made there, and ultimately they'll obviously be placed somewhere. So I think that interaction that you have with that network really helps ultimately. uh, you know Now talking about your mentor, do you ever had one in this field, or at the firm where you in, or any of the colleges that you've been to?
Yes, I have been fortunate to have had some great role models to look up to, both in academic and professional settings. Um, but I've always considered my brother as my number one mentor, be it in my career or life in general. He's had such a large influence on me from day one, and he's one of those people who are just naturally born a leader. And to this day, he's my biggest sounding board. And even though he is not a lawyer, his ideas about my career are somehow always better than my own. So I just like to attribute all my success to him. I've had a lot of support along the way from my professors and my peers alike. But if I had to, name one person, I think it would be my brother.
How often do we get to hear that your brother in this story being your mentor, being everything, and his ideas about your career better than your ideas about your own career? So you don't get to hear that quite often, because sometimes I've recorded so many episodes, so mentors are generally professors and your friends, and so it's good to have an episode wherein the Amicus has a mentor and a brother. That's an amazing story. Now
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always been a very headstrong person, and the only person who could, you know, uh, get to me and get me in many ways is just him. So,
Fantastic. Now going ahead with our next question. Now that we've discussed mentor, in this field, and how any memorable experience that you wish to share from college or at workplace, which proved to be a turning point in your career.
yeah, my college life was full of memorable experiences, but I'll share one from my professional life, which was the most unexpected experience for me. I was contacted by a Chinese law student who had come across my profile in a WeChat group. WeChat is the Chinese equivalent of WhatsApp. And because WhatsApp is not, I guess, allowed in China, they have their own WhatsApp, which is WeChat. And this person had come across my profile in a WeChat group of a higher education consulting company. And I had no idea that my web page was being circulated in this inspirational way in mainland China. So that was a very interesting discovery for me.
That's incredible. What now when we talk about, you've already spoken about your memorable experiences. Now we obviously know a lot of people who are doing M&A work, who are doing corporate work here in India, but not often do we come across lawyers who are practicing or working in US as corporate attorneys like you are. So how different was the landscape when you compare because you worked in India for a bit and then you moved to the US? Do you think there's a huge landscape or change in terms of the nature of work and the opportunities that you get?
I would say there's a lot of cultural differences in the workplace. But technically speaking, I mean, obviously the legal system is different here, right? So you need to get well versed with the technical laws that apply to U.S. corporations, and then foreign corporations that are listed in on U.S. exchanges. But deals are done the same way across the world, and so in terms of a deal pathway or just the flow of work, like for an M&A transaction, oftentimes lawyers are tasked with the most important task of due diligence. And so that doesn't really change. When I was working at HSP in India, my work was pretty much the same in terms of, what exactly needed to be done to get the deal to close. But the laws just obviously had an overturn because this is a different country, a different system. There are regulations that are not necessarily applicable to companies that are in India, but it's a very different place culturally, I would say, because I feel like in India it was a very traditional and if I may say patriarchal culture that I got exposed to, and then coming over here, it's more of a meritocracy. It's one that provides a level playing field as much a way as it can, and it's really on the person themselves to just own their career and make what they want to of an opportunity, if they're lucky enough to get it. So I think in the US, there's a real opportunity for someone who has the determination and the resolve to move out here, step out of their comfort zone, and just take on a challenge of finding a job that they really want to do in a field that they are passionate about, interested in, and just go from there.
Fantastic. And now, lastly, what would be your piece of advice to all the young lawyers, law students who wish to build a successful career like you have in M&A, in corporate law in the US? And when you talk about, when I talk about piece of advice, I'm also referring to any particular internship courses or books that you wish to recommend.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess there are two aspects to this question, right? My first piece of advice and my biggest piece of advice would be that whether you land in law by design or by chance, make the most of it. Law school is an exciting place, and don't be afraid to pursue a path that's different or untested. If you want to nerd out in space law or wine law or video game law, now's your chance to do that. And I assure you, it'll be worthwhile no matter what you end up doing in life. Of course, on a technical aspect, on a more technical aspect, I would say it's very important to brush up your communication skills. When we joined Berkeley, we were told to have an elevator pitch, which is a 30-second, write up or intro to yourself, about yourself. And so, when you're meeting somebody, the idea is when you are meeting somebody in an elevator, how do you make the pitch? What's your selling point? It's how you make that conversation meaningful and fruitful in a very short span of time, because people have short attention spans, and you need to be prepared at every opportunity to make that point that this is what I bring to the table. LLMs can really distinguish themselves from the JDs on one point, which I think is crucial, which is work experience, because more often than not, most JDs are going from undergrad to law school, and then they're starting work. So they don't really have had much professional experience outside of their internships or summer schools or something like that. So if LLMs can demonstrate that they have had access to an exposure to a full-time job which is in this field, or in the field that they're interested in, that would go a long way in making them stand out among their peers who have JDs and who have more of a traditional charted out path for themselves to get into the legal market here. Another thing is, sometimes for international students, especially those coming from India or China, visas can be a barrier too, because unless you're a very large law firm with all the resources at your disposal, sponsoring visas and just getting to know about that legal landscape can be a bit of a challenge. But it's I think it's something that is a conversation that comes up later on in your interviews, and it's not a point on which the law firm will not hire you, or like the hiring decision will not be made based on your visa status. It will be based on whether you have the required skill set, and that's where you need to really stand out and prove to them that you're at par with the JD pool that the law firm has access to for their summer programs and the usual ways of hiring. As far as internships and courses are concerned, I would say expand your reach and allow yourself to gain as broad of an experience as possible. I'm a corporate generalist, and I really enjoy the broad nature of my practice. I understand that somebody may want to specialize in a narrower field or a niche, space, which is totally valid and a great way to carve out a name for yourself in that particular field. But regardless of what you choose to do and what field of law you wish to practice, it's important to gain that early exposure to a broad number of deals or matters or just in general laws, so that you have tried many different paths and then chosen that one that makes the most sense for you.
Well, did you just realize that you've given me a fantastic set of ideas? So I had absolutely no clue that there are fields existing by the name of space law and wine law, and I'm yet to cover sessions on that. So probably I'll have to look for speakers who specialize in these fields in this area of law and probably record sessions then.
Yeah, that would be great. I look forward to listening to those as well.
Of course, I had absolutely no clue. There's a field called wine law. So there are courses that are associated with that. That would be really nice to.
Yeah, so there was this course at Berkeley that was wine law. I couldn't take it because I was too busy focusing on my business law courses, and then I took a few courses that are like getting to know the U.S. legal system and just professional ethics and things you need for the bar. Because another thing is, they publicize about how hard the New York and the California bar is, which I think is not a very big concern for an Indian trained lawyer, at least, just because I feel like our Indian education system is so rigorous that it prepares us for the worst. And so
Yeah,
I
from
think
space law to wine law, it prepares for everything.
I mean, those are more like electives, right? So you need to have a very strong foundation in your basic courses, and then you can definitely choose to study and specialize in something like wine law or video game law. There's a lot of intersection between those fields and then tech law or just general administrative law. So it's good to have that solid foundation and backing that you get in your primary law degree, and then you can definitely take these courses as part of your master's.
Very well. There you go. Another brilliant speaker, another outstanding session on the virtual Amicus, someone who's conquered the legal market there and who discussed her journey, gave her valuable insights. So thank you so much, Vartika, for taking our time, for doing this session for us, for sharing your valuable insights. Anything that you wish to say as parting words before we wrap this up?
I just, want to say thank you for having me, and I hope this benefits your audience and your viewers, and may you have more such sessions in the future.
Well, thank you so much once again for taking our time for doing this. To all the viewers who are watching, our email is mentioned on the channel. So in case if you have any queries, any doubts on any of the fundamentals topics, or with respect to how you apply, where to apply, and if at all you want to build a successful career like that of Vartika, then feel free to write to us, or you can write to our Amicus directly. Email is mentioned on the channel, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. We'll be more than happy to help you out. That is what the objective is. That is what our endeavor has always been, to solve legal issues, both basic and complex, at the same time to help you, guide you through as much as we can and as long as we can. So thank you so much once again for taking our time doing this. It means a lot to me and my entire team. It's goodbye for now.
Thank you, Jay.